Hey YouTube, this is Wrestling Amusement Park Fan 62. Um, Here is a review, a preview of Wrestlemania 42. Um, Now there are going to be two matches at the end that could or could not be on the show. We will have to see, and I will get to those. Um, First of all, for night one, you have Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. Now, the thing with this feud was this has only been going since right after the Elimination Chamber. But it was just last week where it really started to get interesting because of because Randy Orton introduced Pat McAfee into the mix. And it was one of those things where you did not see that coming. You thought it was going to be somebody else. Which I am all in favor for a swerve. But for it to be Pat McAfee is such a slap in the face, because this is the same person who sat beside Michael Cole for about a year and a half, maybe longer. And every time Jey Uso would come to the ring, who was yeeting on the desk. The next match is going to be Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vaquer. Now, this match in particular has gotten very personal over the last several weeks. So before, it was just stuff like, Stephanie saying Liv talks too much and all of that stuff. And it has not been to the last few weeks where it's gotten very personal, where, Liv tried to incorporate Stephanie's mother into the mix, calling her a person you find on the street looking for services. And then Stephanie went after Liv's mother, calling her a little bitch and all of that stuff. But then if you saw Raw this past Monday, where Stephanie got the best of Liv Morgan and threw her into a television, and so she had a big knot on her head. So this match in particular is going to be rather interesting, because there are going to be all these different scenarios that could happen, even between Judgment Day. The next match is Gunther versus Seth Rollins. Okay. Seth Rollins and Gunther have only wrestled one or two other times in their history. The first time was going back to a European tour back in, I think it was 2018 or something like that, when NXT UK was a thing. But the weird thing is, this seemed like one of those last-minute matches. But I am glad both are doing something at least. Next is AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. Now, this feud in particular has been going on since September. So, going into WrestlePalooza last year, you know, Becky Lynch was making CM Punk's life miserable. She was slapping him and all of that. And there was all of these AJ references. During that time as well. So on I think it was September 14th, SmackDown in Chicago. Seth and Becky were in the ring talking about how Chicago isn't part of Punk hometown anymore and all of that. Punk came out and saying, Becky, you know, I don't have anything with you. It's for your husband and all of that. Becky kept slapping Seth. Seth was like, or Punk, I'm sorry. And Punk is like, Becky, I didn't want to come to this. But I can't touch a woman, but I know someone who can. And cue AJ's music, which one of the things I am glad WWE has kept with this has been AJ Lee's Light It Up. And they've been having this feud where on and off. So, you know, you had AJ beating Becky at WrestlePalooza, and then AJ beating Becky at Survivor Series in San Diego. You also, I think around Christmas, had AJ cost Becky the Intercontinental title to Maxine Dupree and all of that. And then at the Elimination Chamber, that being AJ Lee's first singles match in over a decade. And how she made Becky tap and all of that. So, the next one is the Irresistible Forces versus Char Alexa versus versus Bayley and Lyra versus the Bellas. Now, I have a question on the Bellas for one reason. Nikki sprained her ankle a few weeks ago, and they are going to make sure she's good to compete. Now, each of these teams have wrestled each other in numerous forms over the last month and a half. And I am interested in how this is going to go and everything. The next one is Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu in an unsanctioned match. Now, this one is going to be interesting because this is not going to be just inside the ring. They're going to have essentially the whole arena to do. So this has gotten extremely personal, from, involving each other in car wrecks to, costing each other matches and all of this different stuff. But overall, this has been a great feud. I am interested to see how it goes at WrestleMania. The next one is the Usos and LA Knight versus The Vision and I Show Speed. Here is the thing. And I'm going to do a different video about celebrities and wrestling. I get having somebody like IShowSpeed is another way to get their eyes on WrestleMania. Especially if WWE can have Speed promoted on his social channels. But there are plenty of men and women in that locker room who could be in that spot of IShowSpeed. I don't like the vision just because of how they act and everything. But to include a celebrity in something every single one of those men and women in that locker room looks toward is a joke. And it's one of those things where you're taking away somebody's opportunity to be in that space. This is going to be a match that's going to be a complete crapshoot. And I'm going to do a different video about this. The next one for night 2 is CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Now, this one in particular has gotten extremely personal. From, mentioning loved ones to everything else. To brawls, to Punk going on and doing a fantastic promo this Monday on Raw to essentially bury Roman Reigns, TKO, and all of that. If you've not seen it, I suggest you go back and look at it. Next one is Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. Now, this one has gotten rather interesting just because you knew something was happening behind the scenes. But you didn't know what. And when essentially the Judgment Day kicked Finn Balor out, you kind of knew something was going to come down the line, especially with how this close to Mania it is. The next one is Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill. Here is the thing about this match. We did not even know this match was happening until essentially after Liv Morgan chose Stephanie Vacour. And even then, we did not know essentially until almost to the Elimination Chamber. This feud between Rhea and Jade has been stale. It essentially has been who can get the upper hand. And unfortunately, Jade has gotten B-Fab and Mia Yim to be a part of this group, who unfortunately is not going to do well for them. Most of Jade's promos have been, in some fashion, I'm that bitch. And it's just like enough. The next one is Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams. Now, I want to start this. The person I feel bad for who has gotten screwed over is Carmelo Hayes, because he had a chance to take the U.S. title into Mania, and there's still a chance he can in some fashion. Maybe not with the title, but going into Mania. Sami Zayn and Carmelo Hayes a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown had a tremendous match, and Sami was the better person in that match. Trick Williams as a whole is over. From the moment his music's hit, you hear everybody go, whoop that trick. From the moment that hits to the moment he gets to the ring, people are saying that. And I am interested in how this is going to go, because essentially it originally looked like Sami Zayn was not going to be part of WrestleMania for this year. Until he beat Carmelo Hayes. The next match is Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar. This has been the one a lot of people have been talking about outside of Punk and Roman. Just because going into this match, Obafemi has gotten the better of Brock Lesnar over the past couple of weeks. Essentially, in February, Brock and Paul came out, basically said, I'm at WrestleMania, Brock's going to issue an open challenge to see who will fight him. The next time Brock came out, there was a lot of random words spoken, and out came Obafemi and essentially powerbombed Brock Lesnar into the mat. And Michael Cole did it perfectly when essentially he had, he basically said, oh, crap. And everything. So this match is going to be very interesting to see. The next one is Javon Evans versus Rusev versus Rey Mysterio versus JD McDowell versus Penta versus Dragon Lee in a ladder match for the IC title. Now, outside of Rusev and JD, all of these other men can fly. So you add Rusev and JD into this mix, that's going to be completely insane. And the last two matches which could get in on the card is Tiffany Stratton versus Julia. As Tiffany has been at it with Julia for not a long time, but after a match a couple of weeks ago, Julia wants revenge on Tiffany. And then the other one is Io Sky versus Asuka. Asuka has been in the side of Io Sky for a while now. And basically, it has been, Asuka has been like, we could have been your family and all of this. And then you have poor Kyrie, who is essentially caught between the middle of those two. And, she looks like she could break at any time. So that match, if that does happen, is going to be interesting to see who essentially Kyrie goes with. Overall, for WrestleMania, it looks like a great card. Um, it's taken a while to get it in together.